the whole staff of the yeshiva, Arichas Yomim, Shalom Tevis, and there should be Madani Mitzuyim Kofar even now, not even when Mashiach comes, we should have the Emer Chaim Zochu, Mele, everybody will be able to learn Torah, Rui Kerheit. It's my great honor to introduce our guest speaker for tonight. But I want to share a kurz, I don't know the details, maybe he's going to tell us. You see, the Rebbe had a weite cook. When he was a small boy, the Rebbe gave him once a key, a mafteach, the key to his room. And from that later, maybe 50 years later, maybe more, his Arizik come and Agresa Sefer HaMafteiches, and everything that the Rebbe said from all the Yoren, and all the Siches, and all the Yichidisen, with everything that the Rebbe spoke about is there in that Sefer HaMafteiches. All that came, that we know, yeah. And there's always coming out the Hashlama after the Sefer came out noch a ganz Greise Sefer mit the Hashlama, and I'm sure there's going to be more coming in the future as more things get revealed. And I would like to introduce the guest speaker for tonight, Rav Zellickson, a mashpia in Yeshivas Olei Torah, yeah? And everybody who learns the Yoim Yoim, I'm sure everybody does, every day looks at the Yoim Yoim. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a few sforim that came out that Rav Zellickson was mechaber with the connection of the Pizgum of the day to the day and to the parsha of that when it comes out. A number of sforim came out on Yoim Yoim, and together with other sforim that he was mechaber, it's my honor and my privilege to call upon Rav Zellickson to address the Oilum. Rav Zellickson.
To start with a Marganisa, a Pnina, a Pearl, a word from the Rebbe, Benegea to the Rambam, and Benegea to Chavivus of learning Rambam, which is a very interesting and unusual expression. So the Rebbe says, the Rebbe begins the paragraph, to strengthen and to increase in all inyonim of Shiurei Torah, Sai Shiurim HaKlolim, through Takonas Chachomim, Uminhoge Yisrael, in every generation, every place, and including, and especially in particular in this generation, Takonas of the Frierdiker Rebbe Nesidereinu, Limud Shiuri Achitas, Ulachreino Niteisav Gam Shir Rambam Hayemi. And then the Rebbe continues, although the reason for that is Takonas Veiros Chachomim, so the Rebbe says, but by fulfilling these Takonas, we are also fulfilling a mitzvah sesam and atera of Talmud Torah, Ve'aderabe, through a Chavivus V'yeker Miyuchodim, with a special cherishing and keeping it precious, B'yeis Heiroes Merabe Nisi Hador. Since these are Heiroes from his Rebbe, the Nisi Hador. So B'meila the Rebbe says this is cherished, very special, by Chassidim that heard it from the Rebbe, and it was instructed by the Rebbe. So there's a special Chavivus V'yeker Miyuchodim. Chavivus means beloved, Yeker means cherished. There is something precious, something very choshev. There's an expression once the Rebbe said in the Sikha, it was in Lamed Vov. Benegiat Chassid said a certain word. He said Benegiat a certain inyan there. He said Meile this and this. Aber Chitas. He heard it from the Frierdiker Rebbe. Doch nishayich that he should overlook it. Basically, that a person receives something from his Rebbe. This is the Chavivus, and this is a Chavivus Miyachedes. Discussing over the years, Benegeh by the Rebbe, the Inyonim of Rambam, so there were also those that pointed out to, which seems like this was a fact, that before the Nesios, it was observed that the Rebbe had a kviyus in learning Rambam every day. It was between Mincha and Ma'ariv in the years Tavshin Ches, Tavshin Tes, which is 1948, 1949. In 770, the Rebbe would sit and learn Alefi HaSeder, but they were not able to figure out how much the quantity was every day, how much the Rebbe learned every day. But they saw that it was going al Seder from one group of halachas to the next group. The first time that we had from the Rebbe a siyum on Rambam was in Tafshin Lamed Hey. It was a siyum that in 770 hat man sich mamish gekocht und then Chassidim were mamish involved in it, the maskilim were climbing up walls. This was like a very deep siyum. The Rebbe was speaking about the union of Seder Ishtalshalos. The Rebbe connected the beginning and the end. And this was basically what took place then. It's told that the Rebbe asked if the siyum was also given to one of the Rabbonim of Brisk in Yerushalayim, if he heard the siyum. And it was later relayed to the Rebbe that that person said that this was the son of Rav Velvel Brisker, was Rav Rafal Soloveitchik. He said that he heard the siyum, and not only he heard it, he's constantly listening to it, ad kedei kach that he's already boki in every word. And so from them gekocht a few weeks, wherever he went, whatever he was doing, he was thinking about this siyum. Made a very deep impression on him. This was basically what he says, for weeks he was involved in it. In Tafshin Mem Beis, the Rebbe made a siyum. Yud Aleph Nisan was a siyum on the Rambam. The Rebbe says, although we already made a siyum 7 years earlier, but the Rebbe says, Ein Beis HaMedrash B'lei Chidush, so therefore the Rebbe made a siyum. Mit der Zeil Bechlal, that that the Rebbe then began being Magia the Sicha from Tafshin Lamed Hey. The Rebbe started to be Magia then the Sicha Tafshin Lamed Hey, but he stopped in the middle. And Migiti Berechat, as it began from Nineveh, that the Rebbe also was planning to come out then with Limud Rambam. But in order not to overlap and not to overshadow another takana that came out in Yerushalayim then from the Lev Simcha, learning Yerushalmi, the daf of Yerushalmi every day, so the Rebbe waited till Mem Dalet. And as we see that right after the takana came out from the Gerer Rebbe Lev Simcha about learning Yerushalmi, the Rebbe started to speak Siyumim and comparing Bavli and Yerushalmi. In Tafshin Lepeil and Tafshin Mem Hey, the Rebbe was Magia, the siyum of Lamed Hey, and it came out then, the first time as a kuntres for itself. Rabbi Kramer mentioned earlier, Benegea, the comparisons of the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam. So that took place in Tafshin Mem Aleph. It was called Dalet Teves. The Rebbe was connecting Chof and Chof Dalet. Ad kedei kach that there's a sefer that's there was original Girsa that Chof Dalet Teves is also the Yortzeit of the Rambam. Später hat man das Machrier given on Chof Teves. So the Rebbe spoke in Mem Gimel as it was getting closer before already in those years Benegea Rambam. So the Rebbe said as it was the Seder Halimut in different countries and communities in Yemen, in Italy and others, that they would learn Torah Shebiksav, and immediately after that they would learn the Sifra Shel Rambam. The Rebbe spoke then a very sharp sicha, Benegea, the ones that are coming out against the Zayim Mitzvahs Bnei Neach. So the Rebbe says, Hayitochen, to speak like that. And the Rebbe says the Rambam was accepted, not only accepted by the Pashat, they had a Seder Alimut, that this was the Torah Shebal Peh, that they learned in different countries. And the Rebbe continues, as we see many printings, many editions of the Chibur of the Rambam, that there are halachas hatzriches bilvad, in order to be able to learn the halachas hatzriches. The Mem Dalet came Acharon Shel Pesach by the Fabrengen. The Rebbe spoke about beginning to learn Rambam. And the next few Yechidus, Thursday night and then Shabbos, the Rebbe developed it, the Rebbe broadened it, the Rebbe clarified it, the Rebbe spoke details. Benegea to the 3 cycles, the 3 different levels, 3 parakim, 1 peirik, you can say from mitzvahs. And the Rebbe explained then that the reason of the learning, the Maila of Limud Rambam is 1, Kakoten Kagodel, that is shaykh to all. The Lashon Sofer Verura, as the Rambam writes in Dagdoma, which we're going to be learning tomorrow. And the second thing is that it's called Ateiru Kula, including also in Yonim of Kachim and Yonim of Beis HaMikdash. Tafshin Mem Hey, there was a surprise. Chof Teves, the Rebbe verbrengt. Originally, before Shabbos, it was the same kviyos like this year. Shabbos was Yutes Teves, and L'chatchila, even the people that would send in mashke before the Fabrengen, that the Rebbe would mention by Fabrengen that those that send in mashke should come up and take it. So the Rebbe sent out the mashke already before Shabbos. B'meila, there was no Fabrengen Shabbos. Of the Mitzvah Shabbos, the Rebbe was Midia, mamish like in a short notice in a sense, Legabe the Seder, the Rebbe would usually notify earlier that he's going to the Eyal Sunday. The Rebbe went to the Eyal, Chof Tevis, and after Mincha, the Rebbe said there'll be a short Farbrengen. It seems like in those years already, the Elam wasn't used to short notice. So B'meila, the Rebbe then stopped in the middle, and the Rebbe said, B'chlal, the Monsech, there's a demand for Seder, and since over here not everything is ready yet, so the Rebbe said, we'll wait till everything adjusts and everything calms down. Everybody that was holding a bench in the hand or a table or anything dropped everything, and the Rebbe continued the Sikha and spoke then on the halacha of Talmud Shagola Magna Rabbi Yimeh. It's interesting to note, we started now the Ayem Yem. When we look in the Ayem Yem of Chof Tevis, there's an interesting shinui that the Rebbe makes in that Pisgam, Legabe, the letter where this Pisgam appears in the Frierdiker Rebbe's letter. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, when two Yidden are learning together or speaking in Yoni Aveda, it's two Nefesh Alikis and one Nefesh Abahami Hativi. I think the letter is from Tofrish Peches. Lepeil, the Rebbe writes the Lashon Nefesh Hativis, which two things. One, he takes out the word Abahami, and he chooses Dafka Hativi. The Frierdiker Rebbe says in a Sikha that they asked the Tzemach Tzedek, why is it that he changed, the Alter Rebbe changed the Lashon in Tanya, writing the union of Abahamis instead of Hativis that the Rambam used? And the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek answers, Benegir, what the Alter Rebbe accomplished, Benegir, the Nefesh Hativis, Nefesh Abahamis. Akoponim, over here we see the Dafke in the day of the Lulav of the Rambam. The Rebbe chooses Dafke the Lashon Hativis, and nimmt den ganzen Aris the union of Abahamis. The Nefesh Hativis. Interesting also that when we look at the Shleishim of the Rambam, which is Yutesh Shvat, Chof Shvat, the Rebbe brings over there that's a mitzvah Sesa, Rishena, the Rambam writes Leda, and it's connected with the mitzvah Vanechi Havaya Likecha. Getting back to the Hakona of Limud Rambam, so a week after the Limud Rambam began, the Rebbe spoke. Interesting expressions, Benegir, the union of Limud Rambam. The Rebbe said, the question is, why suddenly was there inspiration, was an awakening to make a shturim Benegir to Rambam? And the Rebbe says, the Lashon Zogendikt, telling Yidden, Herzechayim, listen Yidden, we need to learn Rambam. The Rebbe says, surely there were many that learned Rambam till now. So Mamela, what is the explanation for this shturim that suddenly to learn Rambam? The Rebbe says, is it because one person didn't learn Rambam till now, that Verna Zagansa Shturim? So the Rebbe says the answer is because the Elam finds itself in a matzav of Tardema, a deep sleep. And there's no other way, the Rebbe says, besides making a shturim an alarm. And a pirsum achi godel b'negiyat is something that's unusual. And b'meila, this wakes up the Elam. And the Rebbe says, and this all is done with hope, and with that this is Seiru's awakening, inspiration, and this commotion, this rash, will bring a Maisa B'Peil by everyone b'chol mokem shehem. From then on, we were zeicha that every Farbrengen, the Rebbe made mention of halacha of that day. The Rebbe explained it either al Pinigla or al Pichsidus, and initially, a few years later, there were two Svarim that came out, Yein Malchus, a Leket from different Svarim of the Rambam that the Rebbe spoke, in Yonim Menigla, in Yonim Mechsidus. And since then, after it was around Mem Vova, Mem Zayin, the Rebbe continued with the halachas of the Rambam, and today there's mamish ha'itzev godel of biurim from the Rebbe and different halachas from the Rambam. In addition to that, the Rebbe also made mention of it by the rallies. We came to the rallies by the children, the Rebbe spoke about the Sefer HaMitzvahs, the Rebbe was made of it was everywhere. The Rebbe of Gemont was 11 mit the Rambam, discussing this is the shiur of the day, the inyan of the Rambam. Over the years, the Rebbe also added certain inyanim, binegir to the Rambam, certain inyanim that are broches, connected with broches. At one point, the Rebbe said in Tavshem and Vov, a remes, binegir the Mispar Pei Gimel, the 83 halachas in the Sefer and the Rambam, is removes, it spares a person from 83 illnesses. Gemara says in Gemara it's mentioned that there is the inyan of machla, is begematria Pei Gimel. There's the Pei Gimel Machlas, and the Gemara says Pashachris spares a person from it. So the Rebbe says the Pei Gimel Halachas in the Sefer is something that through them is accomplished a cure for the Pei Gimel Machlis. Also, after the Rabbi continued also benegir to the Rambam itself, that also in Yonim were revealed after the Sefer HaRambam, so they are already beremes b'sifrei. The Rebbe says al derech like by Moshe Rabbeinu. So we have called lekam midah the leirimizi beiraisa, that there is nothing that isn't found in Torah. In the same sense, also benegir to the Rambam. The Rebbe considered the union of the Rambam a tzinar of ashpa, in the same sense that when it came to Mivtzoyim, and people asked brachas, and the Rebbe asked, are you involved in neshek, are you involved with the energy, or with the energy, that the appropriate energy? In the same sense, when it came to Limud Rambam, there was an interesting answer to a shliach that wrote that he has a lot of chavis, he owes a lot of money, and Bashit, and it's Bashit overwhelming him. So the Rebbe said the first thing is he should be mashlim his chavis in the Rambam. Whatever is outstanding, and this is the first thing. In other words, this is the tziner, this is basically the channel for the inyanim. In the beginning of the Mems, the Ayem Yem, Ha'ores and the Ayem were published, and the Rebbe's biography was updated, and there were different questions that were asked, and the Rebbe answered them. And amongst these questions, some of these questions were basically that that it seemed to be an inconsistency between a few places in the Ayem Yem benegir to the spelling of the word Isvadus. If we write Isvadus, Hey Tov Vov Vov, Ayin Dalet Vov Sof, or just to write one Vov before the Ayin and one Vov after the Dalet. So the Rebbe wrote it has to be Moli. Moli, full, two Vovs. And the Rebbe zeichens the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Tana Teisva, which is interesting that when you look over there, it says even Mercedes Hashas, that it comes out that Meisha has to be spelled with a Vav. It's not Moli. Azich the Girsada. The Rebbe continues and the Rebbe concludes, Vikoheino Harbe B'Sefer Hayad. This was summer of Tavshin Daled Mem. Much in Sefer Hayad we find that it's Moli. Another inyan, an interesting inyan, a remez, that the Rebbe was sent off to a halach in the Rambam. This was Tammuz Mem Dalet. It was written then that the Rebbe's biography, in the letter to the Rebbe, was written that the Rebbe's biography is being updated and included here from Mem Beis to Mem Dalet. And in general, the Rebbe's biography in the Ayem Yem is the most authentic biography. The Rebbe looked it over. The Mamish screened through everything. There were things that Rebbe took out. There were things that Rebbe put in. There were things that Rebbe changed. It was an interesting inyan that the Rebbe did not want under his name. And B'meila, it never was published under his name, a certain inyan that happened in Tavshin Chav Zayin in Israel, B'negia, a certain Meised. And it was suggested that I should include it and see what the Rebbe will say now. This was in Tavshin Mem Aleph, in late 80. Or actually late 81, it was a Kislev Mem Beis. The Rebbe crossed out that line again. Although when a person looks today at the Yemei Tmimim that's coming out from Rav Zusha Wolf in Eretz Yisrael, the Rebbe was involved in every prat. But for whatever reason, the Rebbe didn't want his name should be, or it shouldn't be under his name. Al Kapanim, so it was included over there that the biography is included here is from Mem Beis till Mem Dalet. And with Yeshrim, Tavshin Mem Beis till Tavshin Dalet Mem, that's the Rosh Tevis the Rebbe used, Tavshin Dalet Mem. By Tavshin Dalet Mem, the Rebbe makes a star. And writes, Re'ei, Sefer Hayad, Hilchas Kiddush HaChedesh, Perik Yudalet, Halacha Beis. It was very curious to see Vu Falta Arayin Tavshin Dalet Mem in the Rambam. Akopanim, in the Rambam, when he speaks about the miles and the shniyas, the different fractions of time, calculation, so he writes over there that when it's 3:44, is Siman Shalohem Shin Dalet Mem, instead of Shin Mem Dalet. So this is what the Rebbe is referring to, the year, the name of the year, Shin Dalet Mem. In Tavshin Mem Aleph, the Rebbe spoke the comparison between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam. As Rabbi Kramer mentioned earlier in different Yonim of Svarim, the Rebbe also mentioned in the beginning of the Svarim, that the beginning of each Sefer starts with Yud Kei Vav Kei. The beginning of the Rambam starts, Yeseda V'amud HaChochmes, and the Rebbe writes that the Eineko, I think from the Rambam, quotes that it's Yud Kei Vav Kei, but because it was a union of Kabbalah, and it was a sakon, a danger to reveal Kabbalah then, so therefore the Rambam wrote it, didn't write it in an obvious way. Although the Rebbe says, we find many times in Rambam halachas that their only makar is the Zayah. There's no other makar, the Rebbe says, it's a mamish al pi Kabbalah. In the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe writes Yehuda ben Temes, so the Rebbe says in the word Yehuda you have Yud Kei Vav Kei. Mela, there was an interest to see what's in the Hayom Yom. In the Hayom Yom, the Rebbe begins the letter of the Rebbe Rashab. And as the Rebbe refers to it as the Mavui, the Pisgam, in the Sicha of Memtes Yutas Kislev. The Rebbe starts with 4 phrases, Yutas Kislev, Yud, HaChag Asher Podeh V'Sholem Nafsheinu, Ve'eh V'chayis Nafsheinu Nitan Lanu, Hayom Hazeh Rosh Hashanah L'dach. It was written into the Rebbe. The Rebbe looked over. Basically, what the Rebbe corrected was the Digduk. Chabad Bechlalat and Kom Gelernt Digduk. And Akoponim, but he left it. There were things that the Rebbe crossed out. And then it goes weiter in the Pisgam, in the next Pisgam, it comes to the Minhagim, it says, Yem Isvadas, Vikabolas, Hachlotes Tevis. Yem Isvadas, Vikabolas, Hachlotes, weiter Yud Kei Vav Kei. And again, the Rebbe was Mikmagia, the Digduk, he left it. Bishasi was found in the beginning of the Rambam, and then by the end is weiter. As the Siyum was made, that the Nisabah Chachamim, the Mesa Mashiach, Lei Kedei Sheinasa Ala'amim, and not that they should have eating and drinking, Ella Laha Sheyasigu Das Beidom. And this is basically the end of the Hayom Yom. That the Alter Rebbe says, I don't want your Gan Eden, I don't want your Elam Haba, I want only you. Ich will nicht dein Gan Eden, ich will dein Elam, ich will nur as dich allein. It was written into the Rebbe, that it was discovered the beginning and the end, and the next few Fabrengens, the Rebbe referred to it by Fabrengen. That he said, and as the Rebbe was madgish, not only Yasigu Das Beidom, nor wie der Alter Rebbe sagt, nor as dich allein. The Rebbe added those words. The Mela, the search went throughout the Hayom Yom. I mean, by now it's already a mice of 30 years ago, but Akoponim, it was written into the Rebbe. The first Sefer, how it was traced, and it was in the Movi that the Rebbe was Magia for the Eitzah of Tafshin Daled Mem. And besides, there was a certain Sefer of the 14 Svarim that was not traced at that point. When Suizikum, it was in Tafshin Daled Mem, that my father had a problem with the hip, and the Rebbe wanted to know very much what's happening. And he gave over to the masker that he wants to talk with the son that's involved. And I was traveling with my father to doctors, different doctors, everybody was trying a different thing. And the Rebbe asked, when is a good time? So the Rabbi Klein gave over to the Rebbe a time that would work, and after Mincha was in Gan Eden HaTachten, it was a Rishchedish al Desheni, Tavshin Daled Mem. After the Rebbe discussed Benegir to the health, so the Rebbe asked him Benegir to the Likutei Torah that came out then, but it seemed like it didn't really come out into the story. It came by the Rebbe, there was something missing, there was a certain begging, there was a problem, and everything stopped. And the Rebbe wanted it, as Yodua, that there was the big shturim then about the new Likutei Torah that was published then, and the Rebbe asked they should make a Fabrengen for it. So when Agresa Simcha, the Rebbe sent out Mashka. And after that, I asked Benegir to the Hayom Yom, Benegir to the second volume of Hayom Yom, and the Rebbe asked, you mean the Horis V'Agos? And I answered, yeah, and the Rebbe said, you mean the same year or a different year? So before even I had a chance, I said, the Rebbe said, Gleicher demselben Jahr. Because there are 92 Pisgomim from the next year, and the Rebbe was already collecting Pisgomim, but the Rebbe didn't lay it out, and the Rebbe didn't want anything should be done with it. Even to print Ksav Yadin separately, the Rebbe didn't want it. I told the Rebbe the only problem is that there's the one of the Svarim of the Rambam that I couldn't find in the Hayom Yom. The Rebbe stood there for a few seconds, and then the Rebbe said, "Zayin the Yogata, but zayin the Matzos." And a few days later, Akoponim it is gefunden, I sent it into the Rebbe. Going over now, Benegir to the Iroes of Limud HaRambam. So the Rebbe said, after a year, the Elam thought that after a year, Limud HaRambam mit abgetan an Arbeit und fertig, and many younger like figured, it was a year, it was a Iroes Shol, a Chayra. Comes after a year, the Rebbe said, that now they should learn at least one halacha be'efen shel hamoke upilpul. Behesem, each one according to their level, how they can delve into it, kol chad lefum shiura delay, which means to learn one halacha be'iyum. And vice is this the that in Var Malchus there's at least a halacha for every day that's more be'iyum. Shir barabim, the Rebbe says, a limut shir hayemi barabim, matevu manoyim shavasachem gam yochad. And the Rebbe continues, Rabbim, lefi ha-chalukah. Pirsum b'chol makim, to publicize it everywhere and to be mishtadl, that also many others from Yidden, kechol ha'efsheri, should join. Then comes Benegir the commotion, making the rash about Limud HaRambam. So the Rebbe says, vices that person felt that if he's going to make a rash, which is not exactly according to his structure, it'll be not like the Rambam. The Rambam says, Bichlal, that a person should be a midam tzois, a midam beininus, not to the right, not to the left. He was afraid that if he's going to make a rash, he's going to become an extremist, to one side or another. So the Rebbe writes to him, Betach marish al var Rambam. This was the siyum and the second cycle. This is like memhei. And the more that he'll rash, that he'll make a commotion and add, there's no chashash that it might not be masim to the Rambam, that the Rambam says a person has to go the middle way. Because we didn't even get to a third and a quarter. In other words, you're still far from getting to the extreme. People ask the Rebbe, benegir to joining in the middle of a cycle. So the Rebbe said they should start from the shir where they're up to now, or b'meshech hazman they should compensate, fill in from the past. And the Rebbe says they should do it b'meshech hazman, either slow or bezrizus, everyone according to their capability. Noch matter. A person wrote to the Rebbe, what should he do if he missed out in a previous cycle? So the Rebbe answers, Yesh mokim lahashlim eisam b'diavad. That there's also a place for them to be mashlim b'diavad. In another Hizdamnus, the Rebbe said, when the Rebbe spoke benegir to the women, that this is a limud that shayach b'myuchad l'zman hagolas. This was a sikha in Memdalet Elu. That the Rambam was mefursam as made in Nevuchim, the guide for perplexed, and that is basically because of the darkness of Golus, that people are confused mitzad the darkness. Ul Matorah Zu, the Rambam dedicated his life, and therefore he also published a sefer of halachas in a clear language and in a short and abridged version, and he called it Mishnah Torah, and this is basically because it is secondary to Torah Shebiksav. And b'meila, this is shayach. In other words, the Sefer Hayad is also shayach to help a person in Cheshach HaGolos. In a Sikha Pinchas Mandalet, which was a very strong Sikha b'negir dinyan of Geula, the Rebbe spoke then very bituyim that were mamish that we didn't hear generally, and it was Takem Mandalet that the Rebbe started to speak very strongly b'negir dinyan of Geula, Tviyas HaGeula. In fact, when in the Yem it was written in the Rebbe's biography that the Rebbe says that every Yid should demand Geula, so the Rebbe added the word Kavyochel. L'tveya Kavyochel, mit ha'egelkeit. Although 4 days later by Yud Beis Tammuz the Rebbe weiter abgesturen, but in writing, documented, the Rebbe wanted to be Kavyochel. Another inyan benegir hiro limud HaRambam, which is a very interesting comment the Rebbe made. The Rebbe looked over the Movoi to the Oris of Memdalet, and also the Rebbe looked over his biography. So b'meila, in one place it said, lahakpid, lilmed Rambam, Mishnah Torah, Rambam. The Rebbe took out the word lahakpid. Lilmed. I guess like lahakpid. Another inyan was, another place it says, lishtadl lilmed. Lishtadl means they should exert themselves to learn. The Rebbe took out the word lishtadl. And that reminds us, in a Ger Pisgam, that the Rebbe once told someone that when a person says, I'll try, it's an American bluff. Zeh the Rebbe amol gesagt. Akoponim to be Messiah, what the Rebbe finishes over here in Pinchas Mandala, the Rebbe spoke very strongly about Gula then, und sitzt da Yid, und Bishas Meise beim Verbringen, and the Rebbe says, when redt wegen de Gula, as Ot kommt das, Chotsch allein. He's holding a Siddur Bishas Meise, and he's planning yet to have Mincha here, and he still figures that we're still here. Aber Akoponim, Bobby Shaw, he still has this inyan, the Eises, the Rebbe said, as Ot kommt Mashiach. So the Rebbe spoke then about Dingen of Acholim. As it's Yid, und wir sagten, Retzechain, as hat Acholim. Es werden starke Eishes damals, Pinchas Mendalet. So the Rebbe concludes, wie Yehi Rotzen, that this Cholim, when it get to Achdus of Yidden, uniting Yidden through Limud Sefer Rambam, Sha'ochin, der Istake Heilig, Mispashe, the Mekabel. They say that the Rebbe mentioned once to, one of the Zeitings mentioned that he didn't expect that the Atzlacha should be so successful, when he gave the Rambam. So the Rebbe says, Heilig, Mispashe, the Mekabel, Miyem, Liyem. The Rebbe says should be solidified, Bimiluid. That all the Yidden, wherever they are, should be united the Eifon of Shleimus through Limud, Kol, Hilchas, Atera, Bishleimusa.
I would like to publicly thank Rav Shmulik Zalmanov for second Beroish and the Vav who organized the Siyum Rambam and Shmulik. There'll be now a Farbrengen led by Rav Zelitzin for those that want to stay. And I want to remind everybody, give us that Macha Brocha Freina, and Zikha Macha Brocha Freina. Shekoyah.
No, yeah, no.